You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Continuing coverage on Hurricane Ida, moving towards the west-northwest at this time, and a really, an unstoppable storm, clearly. Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Very powerful, tremendously powerful, with winds of around 150 to 155 miles per hour. NHC, with their latest update, 150, and a pressure of 930. Force 13's latest update, 155. And I think they said 929, I forget already. That was correct. And landfall expected throughout the course of this morning, probably around lunchtime. As it stands, it is 8 a.m. Central Time, and if you're waking up to this morning, I'm afraid it's not good news and perhaps a bit of a shock. This is a high-end Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, and a 16-foot storm surge or higher is now expected. The National Hurricane Center expect this storm to make landfall at borderline Category 5 intensity, and the way it's going right now, I think a lot of our members are of the opinion that it will reach Category 5 before that happens. Let's cross over to Thomas with the latest information.
So the National Hurricane Center has just said again that they're going with 150 miles per hour, 930. We're up to 155. We have a lot of solid information that's going to allow us to make that 155 conclusion. The recon data that we've gotten shows very clearly that we have a very strong tropical cyclone, and I think that most people on the team here, and I know our cyclone analysts agree, that we've seen solid support for 155 miles per hour, both from flight level winds and dropsons. So pretty confident in that 155 mile per hour estimate. At this point, it's just a matter of how quickly this storm is going to deepen. The general expectations for the storm, again, 155 mile per hour landfall according to NHC. Force 13 has called a 160 landfall as the current prediction. We also do have rainfall totals, which are expected to exceed 20 inches in many cases in local areas. New Orleans right in the middle of that significant rainfall spot. I'm actually going to put that graphic here in live output, if that's helpful. And peak surge, again, 12 to 16 feet according to the National Hurricane Center. With, in my opinion, as well as Devin Williams, our chief cyclone analyst's opinion, surge over 20 feet being a possibility right where the landfall occurs in areas just east. So, very dangerous situation currently unfolding.
Before the break, John Curtis sent in a message that I didn't want to forget. And thanks very much for your support during this tough stream. For everyone. Are we seeing the maximum potential of a Gulf of Mexico cyclone when atmospheric and marine conditions are perfect? I don't know if they're referring directly to this storm or what there.
I guess so. I mean, if the question that's being asked here is, did this storm basically prove what the Gulf of Mexico can do
Maybe.
when a storm is like in perfect conditions? I would say that I think that Katrina and Rita would tell you no. I believe personally, you know, we've had a bunch of very strong storms in the Gulf. Camille would tell you no. I'd even go as far as to say that storms like Helen say no. So
Northern Gulf, though, it is a much smaller field. I can only really think of Camille and Michael at this high latitude.
Yep, but this is it. This is in the upper end of storms, so it's not the absolute pinnacle of tropical cyclone intensity here in the northern Gulf of Mexico, at least not yet, and hopefully it won't ever get there. But it's up there. It's close.
All right, so I don't know if we mentioned it off air or on air. The station that reported a 922 pressure. Uh, this is from the same person that tweeted, Anthony Bordano from WALB. He said, a note with an asterisk. That same station also reported a 910 pressure, so maybe it's a station error. Either way, Ida ain't messing around. I
I
definitely
would say
think
it's
it's
an
a
error.
station error. I
Sounding
definitely
like
think
it.
it's a station error. Definitely a station error.
Yeah.
Yeah, reliance on reconnaissance aircraft data will do just fine.
And once again, we're left staring at the visible imagery of the storm and its eye, which isn't fully clear on visible because of all of that convection that's still blowing relentlessly, mainly around the northern side right now. Let's see if we can get a position estimate from land. And am I right in saying it's still jogging west, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. It's had a slight northward jog for a bit, but then it resumed that westward motion. So if it continues to just sit here, that's going to be bad news overall, both in terms of the maximum potential strength of this storm, rainfall totals, and just how much more storm surge it's going to manage to kick up.
36 miles off Port Fortune. I forgot what else I was going to say. Actually, latest radar frames, Thomas. I want to see what you think about that. I don't know what's happening on the western side. Is it a weakness or is it just incidental?
So you'll actually notice if you take a look through those frames, you'll actually see the western side goes away, builds back in, and then goes away again on that. That's a bit of instability with the intensity of that eye wall, the intensity of that core. I think the convection of the storm is just having a tough time sustaining that ring all the way around as it's heading into those shallower waters. But overall, the structure of the storm still looks fantastic. But yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of a weakness, but it's nothing, at least in the short term, I don't think it's going to significantly affect the strength of the storm. Once we start seeing a break in that eye wall, that's when I'd start saying, okay, this is good news. That's the halt in intensification that we've been looking for.
Looking back at our live cams, this is Grand Isle. Again, an image every second or so on this. It's not fully a stream, but from what we can make out from that, it looks like a big mess. A better camera really for smoothness is the one just north of Grand Isle on the roads. Isaac, what's the latest there?
I'm seeing more and more storm surge getting across the other side of the road there. I'm seeing more debris coming up on the road. You see it at the bottom right of your screen, some debris washing up. And then, of course, if you look to your top left there, you see more debris piling on top of the road there. So this road is pretty much impassable. I would say, honestly, it's impassable at this point. And thankfully, they cut off transportation through this road, I believe, earlier this morning before sunrise. So nobody's going to be getting in or getting out of this stretch of road at the very least. So if anybody stayed behind in this, they're on their own right now, unfortunately.
Look at that, and the water moving on much more quickly. I mean, a vehicle would have a very tough time at that point to stand up against that.
Yeah, I'm glad we have these cameras up so we could show the people who are curious about it what's exactly going on in the ground here. So we have some sort of ground truth, and we don't have to harm anybody or injure anybody in doing so, because these are automated cameras that the state put up here.
We have a new drop sun from the southeast Eyewall. If anybody would like to read it off.
Yeah, but it supports a pretty solid Category 4 yet again. And that's what we've been looking at here. Just more and more evidence just mounting up that supports, yep, this is a Cat 4. This is a solid Cat 4, 118 knots at the surface, with an average mean wind in the lowest 150 meters of 136 knots. That should be very telling of just how strong the storm is, and the fact that those winds just above the surface really haven't mixed down just yet.
It looks like the Air Force, they went southeast, they've turned north, so it looks like they're getting ready to do yet another run at that northeast quadrant.
Yeah, that
Sorry.
would be a very that pass would be very telling.
Meanwhile, the NOAA 3 is in the I have no idea what they've been doing. They've just been going in circles, but it looks like they're going northeastward out of the storm, but I don't think they were in the northeast quadrant. I think they were just east.
They've
Yeah,
been keeping a pretty constant 750 millibar pressure. So they're definitely still in the storm. They haven't ascended yet, which means I think that they're probably going to go for another pass. We're going to see what exactly we find with these two planes here soon.
And these are probably the last two planes for recon, because after that, it's on land.
I'm sorry to say that the 4 cameras that were in Leeville have now all gone down. I took a screenshot of the last frame, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pull that up for reference here. But yeah, all 4 cameras have gone down.
We still appear to have the webcam at Grand Isle at the moment. That's how things are looking there once again. But well, we'll see
Here's the last frame.
if we can raise those cameras at all.
This was the last frame before the cameras cut out in Leeville. Quite an ominous picture, if I had to say so myself.
Hold on, I think I've got one of them back up. I'm just confirming to see if it is still there.
It'd be great if they came back on, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is for good.
Wouldn't surprise me either.
That's the last frame there.
It is back up.
Have they been flickering in and out?
This is the first time it's done it. Let's see. Let's hope they come back on. Nope.
This
still
one is
down.
back on, the one in North Leeville.
Let's see here.
Isaac's
Internet,
not having
bring
much luck.
Yeah, my internet. Oh, there it is. Yes, it's back. It's back. Yeah, I really want this to stay on as long as possible here. The more, the better.
I mean, that's no longer a road anymore.
That's now the Gulf of Mexico.
It looks like the eye of this storm has kind of formed a hexagon yet again. Again, showing that we have very strong mesovortices going up the eye of this storm at the moment. So we'll see what's happening. I almost feel like I see a bit of a break in radar here. It's nearly a break in that Eyewall. It's not quite there, and in the latest frame it is filled back in. So fortunately that appears to be a temporary thing. That is no longer a problem. And you can see that here rather clearly. The frame before, we saw there just that inward kind of thing, that spiral band, that curving. And in the next frame, you can see there that a new tower has come up. We're building that back in without any problems whatsoever. So,
Any other
Really?
features on the radar that you want to point out? Maybe wider around the storm, potentially looking out for tornadoes and such.
We have had numerous tornado warning extensions actually to the north here. So we have the tornado warning in Florida. This is for the same cell that we covered earlier. A tornado warning in Florida remains in effect until 8:45, so it's about half an hour for West Central Mobile County. There in Alabama, and then in Mississippi, we have a tornado warning in place until 9:15 for
That
northwestern
just got
Jackson
issued
counties.
as well.
Yep. So radar indicated tornado. If you're in Big Point or Wade and Hurley in Mississippi, you need to be getting to your safe place right now. If you're near Grand Bay in Alabama, you also need to be getting to your safe place.
I'm here with report. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but there's apparently. Actually, I'm gonna wait to report on this. I don't trust it yet.
Okay. But certainly dangerous times right now.
Yep.
People still asking about eye temperatures, and the latest eye temperature we can see on satellite is around 18 degrees. It's been consistently fairly high at this point.
Oh.
Yeah, so very, very high temperatures here. And Nathan, how wide is that eye on satellite? Do we know? Do we have an estimate on that right now?
I mean, it's hard to grade it really, but it must still be around the same as it was a couple of days ago, about 25 miles.
Real. It appears to me that the eye is slowly shrinking on radar and on satellite. And recently Recon came up with 20 nautical miles. So it could be below that.
Yeah, may well be.
We'll have to see.
On the on the imagery, 1 minute imagery, we see convection building up on the eastern side, just near the Eyewall, -70 cloud tops, trying to wrap around, almost fully wrapping around.
I hate to say this, but it looks as though there's lightning in the eye again.
There's what?
There's lightning in the eye wall again.
Yeah.
Yep, a surefire sign of a intensifying system, and we're starting to see that western side build back in yet again. So yeah, I think that western side's weakness was a small blip. I don't anticipate that to continue to be a problem. This eye keeps on morphing in shape a little bit as mesovortices continue to just come up and spiral around it. It's very impressive, and it's very unfortunate that this storm has not really had much of an eyewall replacement cycle. It's taken place to hinder its intensification.
Legal cameras back on yet again. It's changed spots now.
Yeah.
It's moved. So I don't know if the operators moved it or if it's shorting out and it's gonna go down again here.
No
Hopefully
one's
just the
gonna go there to move a camera, surely.
No, I mean robotically.
Oh, I know. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't expect anybody to go down there at this point. Seeing how the road's closed, but yeah, I think that they just tried to move it remotely here, and I guess they're trying to get a better view of the water, I guess.
You see, back here in Old England, we don't have many movable cameras. That's why.
I'd like to note that NOAA 3 is about to move in to the northeastern quadrant of this storm. We're going to find out here very, very soon whether this storm has ramped up in intensity. This is going to be a big observation coming in here soon.
Okay.
They're already getting Category 3 flight level winds. Category 2 to Category 3 flight level winds.
Yeah, and they're currently over land. So they're finding those Category 3 force flight level winds just over this land area right there. That's still far away from the Eyewall.
So we've got a lot to go. Also, we have, it appears that we have Nelson in the green room, who's from New Orleans, right about, not overly far from here, from where the hurricane's going to be making landfall.
Yeah, in this case, though, Nelson did evacuate from New Orleans. He was not taking any risks with the storm, and I believe he's made the right call in doing so.
Absolutely.
His storm is gone.
Yeah.
when you consider that the centre of the storm's eye is currently, I've lost my bearings now, how far is that? About 88 miles from the middle of New Orleans, and it's south, nearly due south. It is jogging towards the west just a little bit, but the storm could veer north at any time, really, because I imagine that it's really slowing down here because it's reaching the edge of that ridge, right? And then, do you think northward motion could happen quite suddenly?
I think it's gonna go westward until landfall and then slowly curve towards the northeast inland.
Okay. So, you don't think it could just zip up north at random and go straight into New Orleans, because it's very close at this point?
I would think that the current motion is to be continued at least till landfall.
Its current motion is sort of west-northwest.
Yeah, it could ultimately end up making landfall where we were first thinking, like way farther west. If this does hold to be true.
It could also be that we see a slight northerly turn just before landfall, but yeah, it's just all these places there are gonna feel at least hurricane force winds.
It reminds me of last year and Zeta, which made a landfall in a very similar location. Of course, a different storm, but it reminds me of the coverage we did and similar circumstances here, watching another storm hit.
And look at the lightning. Like, there's quite a bit of lightning. Oh wait, there's quite a bit of lightning in the Eyewall, like around the entirety of the southeastern quadrant of the Eyewall.
Let's take a couple of questions. X-Fails says, I know Ida is the focus, but is Tropical Depression 11 a threat to the Azores? Let's just have a little recap on what's going on elsewhere. Here's the Atlantic Ocean. You can see 11L at the top, 10L at the bottom, both Tropical Depressions if I'm not mistaken still. Just any one or two sentences on that?
Tropical storm.
All right,
Yeah,
that's
I think
two
that's
words.
fair.
Both of them
No,
do
I
have a
haven't
chance
really-
of becoming a tropical storm.
Yeah, I haven't really paid attention to it, but last I heard, I believe 11L was supposed to peak at a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm, and 10L, I want to say, I think about the same.
It looks like 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm in about a day's time for 11. 10L is expected to strengthen throughout the entirety of the forecast period, up to 60 miles per hour at 120 hours. And then we have those two areas that could form. The MDR wave is definitely going to form, and this sad blob off the coast of the eastern U.S. I don't anticipate that doing anything.
Okay. Back to, of course, the main feature, which is Ida. So at this point, would you say an Eyewall replacement cycle will not matter?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I do have some good news that's come in from NOAA aircraft. Flight level winds have gone down in the northwestern or northeastern Eyewall by a considerable margin, actually.
Wow.
So that weakness in the eastern or the western Eyewall, it seems to have taken its toll.
New image just came out. Let's just get another probe on the eye temperature. In fact, it won't even tell me what it is anymore. It must be around the 20-degree mark. I think it's 19 or 20 there. And try and do a position estimate. The center of the storm's eye, probably about 32 miles from Port Fortune now. Our coverage will continue probably until quite a way after landfall as Hurricane Ida continues to approach with a devastating impact potential. It is a high-end Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale.
I believe we're now joined by Nelson. He's able to talk.
Good morning.
So Nelson, Ida not far away from Louisiana, but I'm sure you've had your own story in the last 48 hours here.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the past, I don't think New Orleans is still in line for the maximum winds, but I don't have a lot of access to information. It's just that the possibility of it coming as close as it is was not worth me staying at my house in New Orleans. So I've evacuated to North Louisiana. I was able to get out yesterday at about 1 in the afternoon, and actually, very happily, I did not have much delay in getting out of the city at that time through I-55.
Well, that's good to hear.
I reached my evacuation point about 4 hours later, and unfortunately, I don't know how my audio quality is. I have very little cell phone service where I am, so I'm kind of reliant on mainly the 413 Discord for information. I've only recently gotten enough signal to even look at YouTube, and so and I'm sure everybody else really appreciate the service that you are providing to the people in the path of the storm.
Thank you very much for that comment, Nelson. And where are you now, then?
I am in Newellton, Louisiana. It's about an hour north of Natchez, Mississippi, which is it's around the Louisiana-Mississippi border. I'm at my sister's hunting camp, actually. It's a nice, fairly sizable building, air conditioning, backup generators, a lot of land. The thing about evacuating is it's a completely powerless feeling. If I were at home and something minor happened, I could fix it. But now even a minor thing, even more major things, I can't do anything about it. And I think that's what makes the decision to evacuate so hard for people, is because you are giving up the power to protect your home. One of the old governors of Louisiana, Huey Long, said, "Every man was a king and his home is his castle." And it's a hard thing to abandon your place and hope for the best. And I think that's why people don't do it. I didn't want to do it, but in the end, the decision was that it just seemed insane not to.
All right, Nelson. Well, we hope things go well over there. Do any of our team have questions for him right now? It's all right if not.
I guess the big question right now is, since evacuation, since you did evacuate and you didn't find much traffic on I-55, do you think that means that nowhere near as many people evacuated as should have? Do you think that means that there are a lot of people still in New Orleans that haven't taken action?
Well, I know for a fact that there are a lot of people who have not evacuated from New Orleans. I would not correlate the traffic necessarily to a lack of impetus to evacuate, because I was headed north, and frankly, I headed north more directly into the storm's path, but it's going to pass over where I am as a tropical storm or depression. I'll take a dead-on hit from that any day. So I think most people were evacuating east or west, as a lot of the traffic maps showed, and as was recommended by most people in the news. They said if you were going to go east, get to Tallahassee, Atlanta, places like that. And if you were going to go west, Houston, Dallas, Austin, somewhere out of the cone. And I evacuated into the cone. It was a much better alternative than where I was.
Just a question for the analysts here. Oh, look at that. Huge waves there. Oh, in Grand Isle, a surge by the looks of things. It's quite hard to tell exactly what's happening as it's frame by frame almost. But that's the picture from Grand Isle right now. How strong do you think the winds are there at the moment?
The winds in this storm right now, we aren't 100% sure. If the latest recon pass is to be believed, then we have seen a rather substantial drop in things, which is good news. That northeastern quadrant is down to 150, 145, it looks like, which is good news.
But if you were to estimate
we'll
right now,
see.
Thomas, on Grand Isle, what do you think the winds are there right now?
At Grand Isle?
Yeah.
Winds at Grand Isle, I would have to say, let me just get some data up real quick, do my best to get this. I'd say you're probably getting solid, sustained tropical storm force winds, 40, 45, maybe even 50 miles an hour.
We just lost that view for the time being. And not far away from that is Isaac's webcam, and we're still looking at that shot there of, well, the ocean, as you put it earlier, aided by storm surge.
Just went down again.
Just went down.
That's right.
Something interesting I'm noting is what could possibly be I'm not sure what it is, but looking at the radar, I can see something interesting. So if you look on the western side of the Eyewall, Eyewall, I'm not sure, is that pocket of dry air?
There was some dry air that was going to go up before landfall. We did know that the humidity was going to drop. I don't think that there was any expectation of a dry air intrusion. I'm not 100% sure if that's a dry air intrusion. It's looking like it is starting to make a pocket there, and with the weakness in the western eyewall, it very well could be. And that would be the saving grace for people in the path of this storm.
Wow.
Doesn't look to be a dry air intrusion from my end. Usually, dry air intrusion makes itself noticeable on IR satellite, and there's absolutely no sign of dry air intrusion on that. Yeah,
Or maybe
absolutely no.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time as saying this, it's not like the center, well, the eye is looking, what? The western side of,
Well, western side of the eye, again, you have that little bit of clearing in the radar imagery, but you also now have this eye wall looking more robust on the western side than it was just a bit ago. So, minor structural problems like this, always good to see. As this approaches landfall, what we can hope is just that those shallow waters aren't going to be able to support this thing, despite how insanely high the sea surface temperatures end up being. And hopefully that's what we're seeing. We'll see with time, though. Infrared satellite has yet to show any degradation.
Latest position estimate around 30 miles from land.
There we go. I am awaiting a recon update in the center of the storm.
All right. I'm sure we'll get that news fairly soon. The National Hurricane Center updating every hour, probably until a few hours after landfall. That tends to be what they do. Let's take a look at the close-up visible again. Just how impressive this storm looks on the visible imagery today. And that mass of a sea of cloudiness, very high cloud tops extending all the way over the southeastern part of Louisiana.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I do want to mention that, yeah, there is a lack of convection on the eastern side of the eyewall, which,
There's a little moat, but when you say lack of convection, those cloud tops are still minus 68.
That's true.
Those are the lowest cloud tops on the eastern side there. And I was just wondering if eye temperature was getting warmer. It's around 17. But you can quite clearly see into the storm's eye there. That's just remarkable imagery there on that visible.
Yeah.
It's not a good look, that's for sure. If you're in Grand Isle, if you're in Golden Meadow, you're not liking the look of this storm right now.
We're going to get an even closer view of that in a moment, just to show you the inside of the eye. But right now we're looking at the imagery once again from Grand Isle. Isaac's showing us it this time. Oh, and there's that visible imagery. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that those palm trees are really taking a beating there. Wow, I would hate to be on the coast right now and seeing that, having to deal with all that. Let me try it again to see if these Louisiana Department of Defense cameras are back up.
Extrapolated pressures. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have some good news. Extrapolated pressure appears to have gone up a bit in the NOAA flight. It's all the way up to 951.
This plane has a problem with extrapolated pressures, it seems.
It does. Relative to the previous pass from this particular plane, it's up. I'm not actually saying I believe the storm itself is that high in pressure.
Yeah, and I do want to also quickly mention that what's it called? Smaller storms, well, yes, they can intensify quicker. They can also deteriorate just as fast. And also, looking at it more, I don't think it's dry air. So...
No.
Filling back in a little bit on latest frames.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's just, you know, radar. Being radar.
Let's see if we have any more questions. I mean, we'll try and take a few questions here and there. We're not going to get that many through here because of everything that's going on. Could the eye be contracting?
That's a thing that I've been noticing, that it seems to be shrinking in size at least a little bit. But you would be expecting the eye contracting a bit in intensification phases like this. Also, Thomas, look at the newest frame on radar and you see the western eyewall looks solid.
Yes, it is built back in quite a bit. So now I guess the question is, could this have been just a brief halt in intensification that we've noted on Recon? Do you believe that intensification could resume?
This conversation's evolving almost as fast as the storm is. Sounds of it. You know, we were talking just 5 minutes ago about is it weakening now, but
well, I mean, these are very real questions. We saw that western Eyewall starting to break down a bit on radar. Now we're seeing it begin to build back in. So now the question is, was that breakdown temporary, or is this storm going to struggle to keep that western Eyewall in solid condition? And we're just going to have to wait and see.
If I had to guess, I would say the storm has leveled off a bit from its intensification. And the next recon pass from this Air Force plane will tell a lot, or a actual ice drop zone if we get one from the NOAA plane. Those two would help a lot to see if it actually went down or not.
Okay, so I'm gonna be crossing some data here real quick, but we just got a drop zone that is kind of concerning. So give me just a moment. We're gonna see.
Oh yeah.
What exactly it is we have.
I can say it. 100 and a drop zone in the northeastern Eyewall from this last pass. 140 knots at the surface, and just above the surface, 162 knots.
Oh my goodness.
Mean wind throughout the lowest 150 meters are 149 knots. So it seems that this drop zone seems to support at least 155 miles an hour.
Another one
At
came in
least.
with 138 knots as well.
We will have to see.
Yep,
Oh,
NOAA
wait, that's
is
familiar,
making
that's
a pass
familiar.
to the northern side, and we're going to see the Air Force plane making a direct pass through the storm as well. So we're about to find out just how strong this does end up being. But yeah, I mean, if we go up, this was taken at 13:16 UTC. At 13:16 UTC, way over here, it looks like we had flight level winds of around 71 knots. I'm going to need to double check that, but right now it's looking like perhaps the winds from the Sond and the winds from flight level don't exactly align. Still, though, we see from the 850 millibar level to the 930 millibar level an increase in winds, and we see it get all the way up to 162, 160 knots at 936, 938 millibars, and then again down to 140. So, at least in my opinion, what this looks like to me is evidence that despite the fact that the pressure may have leveled off and the flight level winds may have backed off just a tad, that the surface winds are mixing down. Those winds are mixing down. We'll see just what evidence we find. Still, nothing that supports above 155 miles per hour, but we are seeing evidence of those Cat 5 winds getting closer and closer and closer to the ground.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of lightning is now starting to show up within the Eyewall on the eastern side. And also, I want to quickly mention the new tornado warning that was issued in relation to Ida, because it has a population cone of 156,000 people, and that includes these towns of Bellevue, Berry Pass, Gonzales, Cottage Hill, Brent, Barrenew Park, McKinnon, and Walnut Hill in Florida until 9:30 a.m. Central Daylight Time. So.
Who wants to tell us about storm surge and latest expectations?
I can do that. When it comes to storm surge, there's a lot to talk about. The National Hurricane Center currently leading the charge in terms of storm surge messaging. They have tools which we don't have access to that allow them to, with relatively good accuracy, talk about storm surge. But this is what the National Hurricane Center has to say in regards to storm surge. And that is that we are going to be having extremely dangerous and life-threatening storm surge, a combination of dangerous storm surge and the tide will be causing normally dry areas near the coast to be flooded by rising waters moving inland. The water could reach the following heights of the above ground somewhere in the indicated areas. The peak surge occurs at the time of high tide. So from Port Fortin, Louisiana to the mouth of the Mississippi, 12 to 16 feet of storm surge. From Morgan City to Louisiana to Port Fortin, Louisiana, 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. From the mouth of the Mississippi to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, including Lake Borgne, 8 to 12 feet, of storm surge. Burns Point to Morgan City, 6 to 9 feet of storm surge. Bay St. Louis, Mississippi to Ocean Springs, Mississippi, also getting 6 to 9 feet of storm surge. Lake Pontchartrain getting 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. Ocean Springs, Mississippi to the Mississippi-Alabama border, getting 4 to 7 feet. Intracoastal City to Burns Point, including Vermilion Bay at 4 to 6 feet. Lake Murphys at 4 to 6 feet. Pecan Highland to Intracoastal City at 2 to 4 feet. Mississippi-Alabama border to the Alabama-Florida border, including Mobile Bay at 3 to 5 feet. Selving Pass to Pecan Island, 1 to 3 feet. And the Alabama-Florida border to Okaloosa-Walton County line, including Pensacola Bay in Florida, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. The National Hurricane Center also notes that the overtopping of local levees outside the hurricane and storm damage risk reduction systems is possible. where local inundation values may be higher than those shown above, which is possible. And again, myself and Devin Williams in agreement that 20 feet is not out of the question. We can also see the deepest water will occur along the immediate coast near and to the east of the landfall location, where the surge will be accompanied by large and dangerous waves. Surge-related flooding depends on the relative timing of surge and the tidal cycle and can vary greatly over short distances. For information specific to your area, you can see products issued by your local National Weather Service office.
Looks like thunderstorms at Pensacola Beach right now. I'm pretty sure I just saw a flash there in the outer bands of the storm. And as you can see, a little bit choppy there, waves coming in. This area has a 1 to 3 feet storm surge tag on it, as you mentioned a moment ago, Thomas. And that's the current scene out of Pensacola Beach right now. New Orleans, if you're wondering, pretty quiet by the looks of things. They're in a lull ahead of probably some of the more major bands.
Yeah, they are now in between the first outer bands and the first major bands of the hurricane. Looks like they're still going to be getting showers and thunderstorms before those bands arrive, that are just popping up. But it's definitely an issue. That western eyewall is not looking as robust as it was just moments ago again. I think that western eyewall is not solid anymore. That's been fluctuating a lot. I think that's a lot of why this storm is weakening right now.
New Orleans right now, and you can see that small object. I think it was a plastic cup or something that was rolling all around the road. So there's clearly a breeze there. Remaining fairly dry by the looks of things. A few people out as well. Nope, he's got his wipers on, so it is raining there. And there are still vehicles moving around in the middle of New Orleans. Makes you wonder what they're up to, because people by now should have either evacuated or be indoors.
Yeah.
And let's
another pass. Oh, go on.
I was just going to see if we could have another look at the Grand Isle camera as well. This one I have to wait a few seconds for. Here it is. And you can talk over that if you like, Thomas.
Yeah, well, I guess first of all, looking at the Grand Isle camera itself, you can see those waves have just been getting closer and closer to shore, and you can also see those palm trees are not having a good time. Not having a good time at all. Yeah, the main thing I was just going to say is that we are going to have more recon data coming in relatively soon, as this storm does continue to move towards shore. We're going to be getting another pass in that northeast eyewall, and we're going to find out again just how strong this does end up being. Right now, I think a solid 150 to 155 mile per hour intensity estimate is appropriate. I see no reason to go above that, and I am beginning to see reason to go below 155. So I think we might have seen peak, especially with that western eyewall really beginning to degrade here of this storm, which is good news for Louisiana, but I don't think it's going to be enough time to significantly dampen the impacts of this storm.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be calling weakening just now. I would imagine that the storm has been leveled off, is leveling off now from its peak intensity of 155 or 150 to 155 miles an hour.
Yeah. Here we go. We're gonna. This is stressful. I'm not gonna lie to you. We're looking at a storm that's fluctuating a fair bit in intensity right now. That eye is not looking quite as symmetric either. It's got a pentagon going right now.
It's hard to say. Satellite I wasn't convinced by a little while ago, but to be honest, I think it's starting to look better on satellite again. 18-degree eye. Radar, it is losing shape a little bit, western side in particular. It's a tough call.
It is.
But even if it fails, in a way, that western wall, would you still say that the winds will be rising, given that you're talking about the winds still in the process of mixing down?
This is a really good question, and we've seen flight level winds go down, and we've seen dropsons actually go up a bit. And so I'm not 100% sure whether the winds are going to manage to mix down, but regardless of that, we're talking a plus or minus 5 knot difference at this point. The storm isn't going to be deepening at a ridiculous rate anymore. We know that much. This is a matter of 130 to 140 knots, and that's not really a huge margin in terms of wind speed. A storm making landfall at 150 miles an hour and a storm making landfall at 160 miles per hour, it's going to have virtually the same impacts. So, while of course we have been talking about whether this will end up being a Category 5 or not, and we even went as far as to call it due to just how quickly it was intensifying. Even if it doesn't make it, that is no reason to take this storm any less seriously. The threat level is still equivalent to that of a Category 5, given the storm surge, rainfall, and still exceptionally strong winds that you can expect to see with this storm. So again, I can't hammer home enough that regardless of whether this is a Category 5 or not, at landfall or before, or ever for that matter, this storm is extremely dangerous, and the threat level isn't really going to change regardless of the category upgrade. The winds are pretty much set, the rainfall is pretty much set, the storm surge is pretty much set. We're getting a 150 to 160 mile per hour storm. It's going to be moving over land. We're getting a storm that's going to be dropping over 20 inches of rain in local areas, and a storm that's going to bring 16 feet of storm surge to even 20 feet of storm surge in certain areas. So, again, we're pretty set that this is going to be a devastating storm, regardless of whether it's Category 4 or 5.
Well, fairly shortly we'll have the 9 a.m. update from the National Hurricane Center. In the meantime, we'll have the floor open for a few minutes on our team. Any other comments that anyone wants to make?
It looks as though the reason why the western side of the eyeball seems to have been weakening, it seems like there's actually shear that's been trying to get into the eyeball and disrupting it. And, you know, that's a good thing, but, like, at the same time, it really is not making the eyeball larger. All it's doing is weakening the western side of the eyeball, which, yeah, it weakens storm, but, like, if it doesn't open up the eyeball, it really won't just go kaput.
Losing more shape on the most recent radar image, Thomas.
It definitely is. I'm seeing that as well. The eye definitely losing some shape there. You can see that little, especially on the northern side, near the north central side of that frame, you can see that little divot there that's really punched up in the eye. And I think that, again, this western eye wall, it's getting thin. It's really starting to get thin.
Yep.
So we're going to see what happens.
Could this be the start of an eyewall replacement cycle?
My goodness, if it is, this outer band needs to get its act together quickly. If it wants to do anything.
Of course,
like
but it would be good news, probably.
Yes, it would definitely be good news. I don't see it being an eyewall replacement cycle, but regardless, the fact that western side is weakening is a good thing.
28 miles offshore now. I don't know if anyone's been clocking its speed recently. It's clearly not going 15 miles per hour anymore, otherwise that would be landfall in 2 hours, or maybe it is starting to speed up again. It had that period where it was stalling a little bit, and now it seems to be moving a little bit faster again.
Yeah, the National Hurricane Center did clock its speed at 15 at the last update. I mean, we'll see.
Well, that would mean 2 hours to landfall.
That it would, but I don't think that's
Update is out from the National Hurricane Center. 150 miles per hour, pressure 930. Interestingly, they have it moving now at 14 miles per hour, Thomas. Northern eyewall of Ida approaching the coast of southeastern Louisiana. An elevated NOAA Seaman station at Southwest Pass. recently reported a sustained wind of 102 miles per hour and a wind gust of 116. Another elevated NOAA Seaman station at Pilot Station East near Southwest Pass recently reported a sustained wind of 97 and a gust of 121. That was where the storm's closest point to land was earlier. A NOAA National Ocean Service observing site at Pilot Town, Louisiana, recently reported a sustained wind of 52 and a gust of 77. It's currently 28.7 north, 89.8 west. They have it 40 miles south-southeast of Grand Isle, which is interesting because I think we're placing it at around 30, so I'm not sure what the discrepancy is there. And they currently have it 90 miles south-southeast of New Orleans.
You know, I sort of have a little bit of bad news as well. While the eye is definitely changing shape, it looks at the wind shear that we were seeing, it looks like it's starting to, basically, the wind shear is starting to go away.
What do we mean?
What I mean? Basically, it looks as though the wind shear on the western side is now closing up.
Well, I don't think that gap in radar was wind shear, but regardless, yeah, I'm seeing here it is solidly building back.
Again.
So, yes, but this time in much more robust fashion.
Possibly at the expense of the eastern eyewall, because that seems to be shrinking a little bit.
Yeah, it does. Although the eastern eyewall is very, very large, so I'm not sure if it's the storm trying to improve its symmetry or what, but regardless, we are looking at a storm that is having some eyewall conundrums, to say the very least.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with more coverage on Hurricane Ida, possibly 2 hours from landfall. We'll have to see, maybe a little bit more probably. But Grand Isle and Port Fourchon, possibly the landfall point. It's getting pretty nasty out there with this storm and an enormous storm surge and catastrophic wind damage possible for those coastal areas of Louisiana. Our live coverage will continue in a moment.